The following podcast contains positive talk about Universal Orlando. Disney fan and listener discretion is advised.
From the Ear to There Travel Studio, this is the Ear to There
Universal Podcast.
The Ear to There Podcast, it's time to start the show. Be sure to hold on tight, here we go. Exploring all the different
Universal
destinations. Ear to There, it's time to start the fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ear to There Universal This Week podcast. I am your host, Phil Groundlick. I am also the owner and the founder of Ear to There Travel, which doesn't only help with travel to Disney destinations. We are a full-service travel agency, which means we can help with trips pretty much anywhere all over the world, including the location that this week's episode is all about, the Universal Orlando Resort. And just so you know, you can listen to this podcast, get your free, no obligation quote, and meet all of the vacationeers, which are the travel agents on the Ear to There travel team, just by heading over to eartotheretravel.com. Yeah, this is a different type of episode. We're going to talk all about Universal Orlando Resort today and what it's like to go there in 2020. It just opened last month after the 2020 coronavirus pandemic. I hope this is helpful for those of you who are thinking about going to Universal Orlando soon, who are on the fence about booking a trip to Universal Orlando. As I mentioned, we can help with that. So I hope this helps you out. And also, I really hope someone is listening to this in the future, like a couple of years from now, where this COVID-19 pandemic is over. Operations in the theme parks all around the country are pretty close to the normal that we saw before. Listen, if you're listening in the future, shoot me an email right now. If the global pandemic is over, I want to hear from you in the future. Email me at phil@eartotheretravel.com. It'll be really fun, like a year or two from now, to get an email from you saying, hey, listen, I just listened to your Universal episode. How crazy was that pandemic, right? Anyway, it has been crazy. It has been insane. It's also been very sad. I don't mean to make light of it. It's been very sad for a lot of people around the world and a lot of families and a lot of just, holy cow, it's been a mess. Anyway, we're not going to get into that today. We're going to get into Universal Orlando. I know I didn't think the day would ever come, but this is episode number 204 for the week of July 6th, 2020, and it's all about Universal Orlando. You're a wizard, Harry. It's my awful British accent. And I wanted to start it off with a little Harry Potter. And maybe I haven't mentioned it enough on this podcast, but not only am I a former Disney cast member, but I'm also a former Universal Orlando team member. And I did really enjoy working at Universal Orlando, and I liked the people that I worked with a lot. I actually worked there for a time at the same time that I was working with Disney. And then I went to Disney again full time. But I do really enjoy Universal Orlando, and I really like especially the Harry Potter sections of both parks, and Superhero Island, and the Hulk, and Spider-Man, and Jurassic Park, and there's a ton of great stuff that Universal Orlando provides, so that's where this episode comes from, and that's why it's here. So last week, our friend, my friend of the show, Chuck Rodriguez, went to Universal Orlando, spent an entire day there, 10 straight hours, which is rare for Chuck. It's hard to get Chuck to do 10 hours of anything. You know what the real amazing feat would be? To get Chuck to not be cynical or sarcastic for 10 hours. That would be impossible, I think. Anyway, I got Chuck to go to Universal Orlando for me because I can't go. I'm here in Pennsylvania with my children and my wife. No, I'm kidding. I love my kids and my wife. Hi, Ames. Anyway, I got Chuck to go to Universal to kind of test everything out, to see what the social distancing was like, to see what the temperature check was like, the parking situation, the dining, the attractions, the queues, the mask-free zones that are in the parks. I wanted to know how all of that works, so I'll have a better idea to tell my guests and my clients what it's going to be like on their Universal and their Disney trips coming up through the rest of 2020 and unfortunately probably into 2021. Oh, and I gave Bob Gurr the week off this week, so there will be no What About Bob segment. It'll be back next week. And listen, Bob has worked with the Universal theme parks. He actually designed the King Kong animatronic on the original Kongfrontation attraction. Remember that huge King Kong that smelled like bananas? Yep, that was Bob's. He created that. And Bob also worked on fixing and refining the Jaws attraction that, of course, is also no longer in Universal Orlando or in Hollywood. Anyway, Bob has a week off. He'll be back next week. And let's get into the conversation that I had with our friend Chuck all about Universal Orlando. Enjoy. Here to talk all about that park down the road with me is a guy who I was trying to think of something funny, Chuck. I'm sorry, I can't think of anything good. I had something and I lost it. Is my friend Chuck. Chuck Rodriguez, welcome back to the show. How are you, man?
Oh, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Phil. Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
I wanted to do something funny. I completely dropped the ball, so we're just going to leave that as your intro. I hope you're not upset.
I thought you were going to say something like, the man who has no scruples, so he'll go to any theme park. He doesn't care.
All right, let's pretend I did that then. There we go. That was the intro. So you bit the bullet and you drove down I-4 to go to Universal Orlando. This is a weird podcast for me. This is literally the first one I've ever done that wasn't a Disney focused episode. And we'll throw some Disney in there too, because I have some questions for you. But so basically what I want you to do is just kind of go through your day and let us know what it's like going to Universal Orlando right now with all the restrictions, what restrictions are in place, how everything flows to food, to everything. So just kind of, if you want to go through it, just start, going through it.
Well, okay. And I do want to start off by saying, overall, I felt extremely comfortable. And I know within my own family and friends, of course, there's people who have children and have had diseases or has current diseases and things. And so for them, they still are not going to bite the bullet. But honestly, the 10 hours that I spent in those two theme parks, I felt safer than when I go to Walmart for 10 minutes. I really did.
Chuck, you know what?
So I've heard that by saying.
Yeah, I've heard that from so many people that they felt safer in the theme parks than anywhere else or at Disney Springs. They've just done an amazing job. So what made you feel that way? What was it about the way it was set up that gave you that security?
Well, I mean, not to get too cerebral about it, but I've done my reading and my watching and listening, and the theory about the fact that if you're outdoors and everybody or 95% of people are wearing masks 95% of the time, that reduces the chances of somebody's infected droplets suddenly jumping into your mouth as you walk past them by 95%.
Yeah.
So in the end, that's what made me feel comfortable. The fact that. And you know how cynical I am. So I went the entire 10 hours. I was hoping to find people who were being obnoxious and not wearing the mask.
I'm sure you were.
And I was alone, so I could observe as much as I want to. I didn't have to pay attention to anyone else or anything else. And honestly, maybe 5% of the people that I saw all day long or less were even slightly not wearing the masks, unless they were eating or drinking. So that's what made me feel extremely comfortable. That was the number one thing I would say.
Cool. That's awesome. So, so I know that they set up the social distancing things. I want to know first, when you first get there, the parking situation, how different is that than it was parking in that? Because they had a huge parking structure. How different was it parking there this time than it was the past times we've, went or gone?
The only difference is the cones blocking every other space.
So other single car space.
Yes, there's always a space between you and the next car over. So which comes in handy at Universal because unlike at Disney where there are enough cast members up and down every row telling you exactly where to park, at Universal's always been famous for letting you park, just telling you which row to go down and then do whatever you want.
Right.
So the cones force people to, do every other space, even if they're not in perfect order of every other space, but still it worked out.
Cool. And then so I know a little bit about this just from doing research. I haven't been there obviously, but so they check your temperature before you even leave that parking structure right on your way out of there?
if you remember, the two garages have the moving walkways
Right.
to get to the center where the security is. So at the end of the moving walkways is the temperature check, which takes, you literally just keep walking and somebody zaps you for half a second. I mean, it doesn't slow you down at all.
Well, that's cool. And then if you have 100.4 or higher temperature, your day ends there, basically. Did you see anybody?
That's right. And I
online?
did stick around because I knew that, my day would have been way better if I got to see a few families who, one of the kids had 100.5 and then their whole day was ruined. I wanted to see that.
Good thing this isn't a Disney episode. You are a difficult person. Anyway, so go ahead. So you were hoping to see.
There's certain people I know who assumed that I was going to say that, so I went ahead.
That's
but
fine.
no, I did not do that. I got my temperature and just keep walking.
All right, good. So you get. So a lot of people don't know that I used to work. I worked at Universal for about a year, and I worked in City Walk. Was where I mainly was in guest relations at City Walk. So I was all over the place there. So you walk, and you know what? I like Universal. And this is going to be this for the podcast listeners who listen, who know how much I love Disney. I don't love it. I mean, but it's a really fun park, and we'll get to the Harry Potter stuff in a little bit, but it's done so well. So you get to City Walk first. You have to walk through City Walk. I'm assuming, I don't know for a fact, how much stuff is open there in City Walk itself? Is it fully open? Is it half open? What's it look like right now?
It did seem like much more than half. In fact, later in the afternoon and evening when I was leaving, when the parks were closing, I did notice that Cowfish, the restaurant Cowfish, which is my favorite restaurant there, was not open at all. But the other restaurants, like the Chocolate Emporium place, which technically is my favorite restaurant there, of course, and all the other table service restaurants that we've been to over the years, they seem to be open. I didn't go, into the back, like that back arch with the second floor
Right,
with the clubs and bars. I didn't notice anything there.
Yeah, I haven't been there. I haven't been up there in years because, we have kids. I don't get to go to those kinds of things.
And you never enjoyed it before kids.
And what?
And you never enjoyed it before kids.
No, that's true. I did when we were single people before Amy and I got married. And especially when I worked there, I would go over there a bit. But yeah, I haven't been to City Walk since my last trip to Universal, which was, 3-4 years ago. But anyway, So we walked through. I didn't do anything there. I just I walked through. I might have bought sunscreen at one of the stands. So you get through City Walk, and which park do you go to first? I know where I started.
Do Islands of Adventure first.
Yeah, that's where you start. Absolutely.
But the only reason I went is because of this whole Hagrid motorbike coaster virtual queue thing.
Right. So
which was lots of fun.
So did you get the ride eventually?
I did, actually. I did. And now that we know that Disney's not doing it, it's not as exciting to me as when we assumed, we were all speculating if Disney was going to do virtual queues. But now that we know that they're not, at least for now, it's not as important. But basically, it wasn't bad. I mean, I walked into the park at 9:20. It opened at 9. And all the virtual queue, the virtual spots were gone already for Hagrid. You go on the app, very, very simple to use, easiest thing in the world. And it said, no, none left, none left, none left. Now, I had read somewhere that throughout the day, you should jump on there and check because suddenly more can pop up. And that did happen around 3 o'clock. And I secured one for, I guess, 30 minutes before the park closed, 6:30.
Okay. And was it?
And it was one of the best rides ever. I gotta be honest.
Was that your first time riding?
Yes, I had seen the YouTube video, of course. Numerous times.
I've seen it too.
But no, it's up there, and maybe the top 5 easily rides in all of Orlando. It's pretty good.
Wow. So one thing I can't tell from the video is how thrilling it is. It looks pretty tame. Is it? It looks like pretty. I don't know, almost like not more intense than maybe a Seven Dwarfs Mine Train or something like that. Is it more intense than that?
It is more intense because it's multiple times that it speeds up with the whatever that is, the magnetic launch or whatever that they're using. Okay. So, and then the backwards part, and then the part which I won't give away, although you could see it you could kind of tell what's happening in the YouTube video. That happens in the dark at one point. There's a pretty big surprise there. Yeah, it's good. I would say I actually liked it better than Everest, and Everest is by far my favorite roller coaster, Orlando, up until now.
That's some high praise right there, man. I've been on.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that is really super high praise. All right, so other stuff. What's open in Universal Islands of Adventure? What's closed? Do they have? Like, I know Disney has that list of things that are closed, and I didn't really research this. Do they have a lot of stuff that's closed that you can't access or can't do?
No, the only thing that I would even have noticed that's closed is the outdoor shows like Fear Factor and the Sinbad Voyage of Sinbad, whatever the show is.
Right.
That's it. I can't think of anything else that I've ever been on over the years that was closed. None. Not even. I couldn't even really tell restaurants. Not that I was looking because I knew exactly where I wanted to eat. But I couldn't really even tell if any of the No, actually, no. I lie. There were a few noticeable fast food and table service restaurants that I've been to over the years that I did notice was closed. A few of them, yes.
Makes sense. Okay, so how about social distancing in the parks? How's that handled? What's the capacity like? You know, what do people generally stay away from each other, follow directions, that kind of thing?
Yes, that's of course where the fun was in my observations for 10 hours.
I know, this is like having a scientist loose in a laboratory for 10 hours, because I'm really fascinated on what your thoughts were on observing the other guests who were there.
So, yes, and you know how cynical I am about human behavior general. So I was not surprised or shocked by anything. I simply rolled my eyes and said, yeah, that makes sense. So the biggest thing that I noticed that I don't know if Disney can do better is that when you're in the queues, there are stickers to tell you to move up, to the next sticker. You and your party should move up to the next sticker. There's two problems that happen, however. One I had read already people talking about before this, but the other one I had not. The more obvious one is when the queue is very well themed and it's almost cave-like or something, and you don't know where the next sticker is. You can't tell because it's around the corner.
Right.
So the only thing I could think of, I was alone, so of course what I would do is kind of just tiptoe and take a peek. But then if I did that sometimes, the next party behind me would just move on up to my sticker, and then I had no choice but to keep walking or stand in the middle. If a family, or a party of friends went, then I think that they should probably send a person like a scout up ahead.
Yeah, or even split
and
into two.
Report back.
You can almost split into two parties too, like half and half. If you're a family, that way you can.
Actually, I did not think of that. That's brilliant. Actually, that's brilliant. I think people should do that.
Yeah, because if you come up on your party in front of you, it's not a big deal. But if you come up upon strangers really close, they might get freaked out. So that may be a good way to handle it.
Okay, you know what? That's number one tip for people going back to the theme parks in the weeks ahead. Number one tip from Phil. That's a great tip. Yes.
There you go. I've even been there and I'm figuring this stuff out.
Perfect. Now, I don't think you're going to figure out the next problem, though. Because the next problem is when the queues are designed switchback, and there's only when it's a switchback queue and it's multiple switchback rows up and down, not a problem. They simply use every other. Great. When there's only a switchback of one way up and then one way down, then they space the stickers way more than 6 feet apart. So that way, when you are standing at the next sticker, the people right next to you are not right next to you. They're at a sticker between you and the next people.
Right, so
does that make
12
sense?
Feet almost? Like so on the other side it's...
It depends.
Okay.
Sometimes it could have been more than 12 feet.
Okay,
the point was to stagger people. Nobody respected that. Nobody at all. Because people just assume go up 6 feet whether you see a sticker or not.
Oh, wow. It's almost like they need signage outside of those certain attractions that say, we don't follow this. This is not a 6-foot social distancing queue. This is a varied. I mean, I think you could fix that with a simple sign.
You also would have to need guests that are intelligent to read the sign and interpret it correctly.
I didn't. Just so
That's
everybody knows,
where it falls apart. That's where it falls apart.
Listening to the podcast, everyone who's listening, that was a comment by Chuck Rodriguez, not by Phil, not sanctioned by the Ear to Their Disney podcast. All right, so continue.
I'm just the inner voice of Phil and almost everyone.
You're not my inner voice at all. I I am denying that.
No,
at
you,
all
I can
costs.
say over the years, I'm definitely not your inner voice. Your wife, yes, potentially, but not you.
Who? My wife, you said?
Yes,
Well,
yes.
that's probably true. Yeah, you probably are hers. They're up there right now. I'm in the basement recording a podcast with you. They're up there watching Hamilton right now. Amy
Oh,
and
yeah,
Alexa.
yeah. I haven't. I was going to hope to watch it later after I finish work.
Yeah, so we're recording this on July 3rd. This will come out next week, this episode. But yeah, it came out this morning, and they were so excited to watch it. I think I just set my Alexa off. Anyway, so intelligent people, inner voices aside, so that is a problem that you noticed. Anything else that you noticed problem-wise?
Well, with that problem, to be fair, what I started observing over the course of the day, because in the beginning, I'll be the first to admit it, the first 2 or 3 attractions, I did the same mistake.
Right.
So then I began to observe carefully and be like, okay, now I get what happens, right? If you are in a party, you're not alone like I was, you're going to be talking, you're going to be looking at your phone, you're going to be doing what you've always done when waiting in a line at a theme park. And think about it, when we used to go to theme parks, it feels like, 20 years ago, even though it was only 4 months ago when everything was normal. When we used to go and we were in a big group, we would all talk and do all kinds of stuff. And then subconsciously from the corner of our eye, when the people in front of us moved, we would just move.
Right.
That's the problem. So it was after the first 2 or 3 attractions, even I was making that same mistake because I was just like, oh, the people moved and I'm assuming the sticker is coming up. And then I'd be like, oh my God, there's no sticker. And then people would get really upset the rest of the day when I would do it accurately, and then that would make the people behind me stop all of a sudden and wonder why they're not moving up to the next sticker.
Yeah.
That was fun.
I mean, it makes sense. That's a weird. I guess it's a weird thing that I didn't even think about as far as the switchbacks go, like how they would do that because you're really on top of each other normally. I mean, there's I don't know 20 people in 6 square feet at that point, so it's pretty crazy.
Agreed. Exactly.
All right, so I'm looking at the stuff the things that they released, that Universal Orlando released on the website, the things that, the extra things that you're supposed to be doing, face covering required, temperature check required, wash hands often. How the hand washing, did they have stations set up around the parks?
No, just signs reminding you, here's a bathroom, go clean your hands. Which,
Okay.
it's perfectly adequate. I don't think it's a problem. But with the hands, there is one fascinating thing that I had not read about and did not realize they'd be doing it. And I am so curious to see if Disney's going to do the same thing. Before you get into a vehicle, when you get to that last cast member who asks you how many in your party and tells you which row to go to, they will squirt hand sanitizer into your hands. And if something happens, because it did happen a couple times where the cast member, do they call themselves cast members or crew members? I don't remember.
They're team members.
Team members. If the team member gets distracted and they squirt you with the hand sanitizer, but they didn't get to watch you actually clean your hands with the sanitizer, they will do it. They'll do it again.
Is that right before you get on the attraction? Is that before you board it?
Literally, as you're waiting for the vehicle to pop up,
Right.
and they tell you which row to go to. Yes.
Right. So it's basically helping keep those surfaces on the attraction clean.
Yes.
Basically,
In the theater attractions, because you're just standing there waiting for the doors to open, then a team member would kind of go up and down the aisle to a point and just do it in the aisle. But if it was a vehicle situation, it would just be done right before you go into the vehicle.
I think Disney that would be a great thing for them to adopt. I'm sorry, in the parks. That's a really good idea. It's just an extra precaution. It says here, it says it on the website. At select locations, including prior to boarding ride vehicles, guests will be required to use hand sanitizer. So that's cool. One thing that I find really funny, Chuck, on their list online is it's all like blue circles and it tells you what's going to happen, what you should do. And then there's a red circle with a cross through it. And it says avoid contact with people who are sick. Why is that on the website? Doesn't anybody, who doesn't know that at this point? Anyway. And then the last thing it says is follow team member directions, of course. How did that work with their team members in the parks? Do they have people, you said you didn't see a lot of people without masks. Do they have people like on mask patrol? Do they have people doing like crowd control so guests aren't piling up on top of each other anywhere? Do you see any of that?
People dedicated just to that, which I believe there's been talk that Disney will have that. No, I did not see that. I overheard, maybe 3 or 4 times during the day, a team member remind somebody to put their mask back on, and the person just did it. It wasn't like it was an issue.
Right. That's good.
But at the exit of the attractions, there really should be a person telling you, keep moving, because you know how people are. They get out back into the sunlight, and they block the entire doorway. And they stop right then and there to, put on their hats and put on their sunglasses, and they block everyone. And so a crowd definitely began to gather in those hallways several times. I noticed several times.
Okay, makes sense. All right, so how'd the app go for mobile food and drink orders? Did you do that at all?
Well, you had to, and I was happy to do it. Disney. I had never used it at Disney, to be honest. I just never wound up using it.
You don't use mobile ordering at Disney? It's like the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It didn't make any difference to me. I was fine with just going in the line and talking and being on your phone while you wait in line for the food.
All right.
But at Universal, you had to. So I had it all set up, and I did eat at. Where did he? One of the Harry Potter ones. I always forget the names between the Three Broomsticks and the name of the other one.
Leaky Cauldron.
But the Leaky Cauldron. Yes, I think it was the Cauldron that I went to. So there's quite a wait just to get to the end of the queue at the restaurant, where a team member then tells you, okay, follow this person to this table.
Okay.
That's a bit slow. That's a bit slow. And but it gave me plenty of time to go on the app and try to order my food. For 15 minutes straight, it kept saying, "You're not in the park yet." And finally, I figured out that there's a setting on your phone that you have to change in order to make that work.
Okay.
Yeah. And therefore, when you get to the end of the line, the team member asks you, "Have you ordered through the app?" And you say yes, and then they wait for somebody to signify to them, okay, there's a table that's empty, and somebody walks you to that table. Then a team member comes and looks at your phone to write down the order number, and then somebody brings you the food.
Okay, so it's long, but it seems like it works out pretty well.
Yes, I don't really have a problem with it.
Alrighty, all right, so what else? Let's go with attractions. What attractions did you ride? Did you do the Hogwarts Express? Did you do the whole thing in both Harry Potter lands? What did you do? What didn't you do?
I did a lot. Let's see. So I did Spider-Man. That was my first.
That's one of my favorites.
Yes, definitely still one of my favorites as well. And then I did the King Kong. I forgot the official name of the new version of King Kong, but it's the 3D
Confrontation was the old one, right?
Situation thing.
Yeah,
something
it's
like
like
that.
Kong Skull Island. Yeah, that's what it is. Skull Island.
Yeah. So I did that. So that was 2 3D things in a row, which was fine. They hand you the 3D glasses, and the water effects is turned off. I'm assuming that's because of masks, so that your mask doesn't get wet. I'm assuming.
Makes sense.
But all of the 3D places, all the 3D attractions had the water spraying situation turned off that I went on. And then what did I do after that? Then I went on, the Cat in the Hat. I went on that.
What's funny about that attraction is there's not a whole lot going on in the Cat in the Hat attraction, right? It's just spinning. And it's like, you go in these rooms and they're like, what are you going to do here? And then it just spins you around 10 times. And it's a pretty dizzying attraction, the Cat in the Hat. It's fun. But it's
if you're nauseous or something, I don't recommend it. You get definitely nauseous. No, I don't recommend it at all.
Yeah, I'm not great with that kind of stuff. I can't do like the Mad Tea Party and stuff. And I've done it with the kids, and it ruins my afternoon. I can't. It's really
Yeah.
Anyway, so go ahead.
I know. Well, I should backtrack and say what the queues were like, because obviously this is my obsession, right? As a local, my obsession is the fact that if the world has been ruined temporarily, then I might as well take advantage of anything I can. And I'm going to take advantage of being able to have an experience in the theme parks like we did back in the 80s and 70s, where if you just call sick from work on a random Tuesday, you have the park to yourself. And it was not like that at Universal, I have to say.
Oh, I use the crickets and everything.
What's the crickets for? Oh, for an empty park.
Yeah.
Yes, good job. We did mention that earlier.
We did talk about this before the show started.
I can't wait to see what's going to happen with Disney, where obviously they have very specific numbers that they're reaching, and the studios, everyone assumes, is going to have the lowest number of all. So I can't wait to see, and they're not going to use virtual queue or anything.
Right.
At Universal, it was a combination of new efforts and a free-for-all old school, because they still had Universal Express, first of all, which anybody who's paying for Universal Express right now has to be the most selfish person on earth who just can't wait 3 seconds, because, I mean, 90% of the attractions you do not need to spend that much money in Express Pass. That would be moronic, in my opinion. And I watched the team members in charge of the Universal Express entrance for queues were snoring. I mean, they were literally snoring and on their phones because it was a trickle of people that would come through.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I noticed. The next thing is that the virtual queue thing. Now, on the app, several attractions would pop up and say virtual queue. Sometimes when you went to the entrance of an attraction, like the Mummy, it would say, no time available, only virtual queue at the moment. But when you went on the app, it was already full. So that did happen, where during most of the day, they were not using a virtual queue, but then all of a sudden they were, but not a big deal. But the thing is that what I noticed very, very early on is that most attractions, yes, it was walk-ons, just like old school, Disney World in the 70s and 80s on a weekday for locals. It was complete walk-ons. But then you get the more popular attractions and you get waves of people. So like Jurassic Park, 1 minute it would be practically a walk-on, and then 30 minutes later it'd be a 45-minute wait. And then 10 minutes later it would be a 5-minute wait, and then it would go back to a 40-minute wait. It was always an on and off kind of thing.
Okay.
Interestingly, the consistently long waits of 45 minutes or more per day was the 3D attractions, like Shrek and Minions. And I'm assuming that's because of the capacity.
Yeah.
So I didn't bother. I wanted to go on the new Bourne, what the heck's the name of I've never seen any of the Bourne movies, actually.
Really? They're really good.
Yeah, I've always intended to. I just never caught them. Yeah, but the Terminator attraction switched to Bourne, and it was a long wait all day long, so I didn't bother. So yeah, that's what I noticed about the queues. So the first 3 attractions I went on: Spider-Man, Kong, Cat in the Hat, walk-on or virtual walk-on. Then the 2 water rides, Dudley Do Right, walk-on, went right into the boat, and of course I got my own boat. So that's another thing, obviously, because sometimes you get your own vehicle. Because I was by myself.
Right.
And then Jurassic Park, I waited 25 minutes.
That's not bad.
For example,
that's really good for Jurassic.
No, that's fine. Middle of the day, during the hottest part of the day, that was perfectly fine. And I know that there's a lot of speculation, especially with Disney, is how in the world are they estimating the queues, right? Because if you can't estimate like you used to, because if you see a line ending at a certain place, that the lines are ending way farther than what we're used to when the parks are not crowded at all. And that's because there's 6 feet or more, or 12 feet, or even 15, between parties. And then there could be a party of just myself, which is only one, and I need an entire row to myself or an entire vehicle to myself. So it's got to be very difficult to estimate what the queue is going to actually be. But I saw for the attractions I went on, their estimations were pretty darn close, or it wound up being less than the estimation.
Awesome.
You know what I mean?
I do. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that worked out, and that's exactly what happened with the Harry Potter attractions. The Forbidden Journey, it was saying 60 minutes, and then I walked past it again 10 minutes later, and it was saying 25, but in actuality, I probably spent 10, in the queue. So that was perfectly great. Hogwarts was a bit of a wait, and that's because I wound up with a cabin by myself, so that has to happen, right?
Yeah,
that has
sure.
to lower capacity. And then there was no wait at all for Gringotts, Escape from Gringotts. And now I'm trying to think of what else did I go on?
Did you do the Hulk? Is that open?
The Hulk, yeah, everything, all the rides are open. There's no rides that aren't open. The Hulk was open, but you know, I get a little nauseous after a couple things, so I skipped.
You are
the
getting
Hulk.
old.
I am getting old, and the Hulk queue was pretty consistent at about 45 minutes all day long.
And you've done it. It's not like you haven't done it before.
No, many times since. Oh my God, I went there when the park was still in preview days in March of 99 when it wasn't even officially open yet.
That's awesome. So all right, so I'm going to ask you some questions that I wrote down. I'm curious as to what your answers are going to be on these. Real quick, a couple things. First, favorite attraction in both parks. What's your number one?
I haven't thought about what my favorite attractions at Universal are. I would have to say at Universal Studios for the moment, it is Escape from Gringotts. I do think that's an incredible ride. And then in Islands of Adventure, it's now the Hagrid motorbike adventure or whatever the heck they call it.
How about this one? Least favorite attraction in both parks, or you can do it as just one least favorite. It doesn't matter to me.
I did not like the Jimmy Fallon experience. That was my first time as well, and everything I had read about it, I felt was true. It was extremely elaborately done. The theme area, the pre-shows, you walk through the building and it looks exactly like Rockefeller, Center does, like 30 Rock. I've done the tour of the building. It's identical. All the pre-shows and the TV monitors showing you the best clips of Jimmy Fallon. Everybody's laughing, having a great time. Then you sit down for the actual attraction, and it's the dumbest thing I've ever been on in my life.
Oh, no.
I really wish. I honestly can say I prefer Twister, which is what it replaced. I really, really do prefer Twister.
I really like Twister, man. I like that. We used to do it every year.
Every time I went to the park, and I always did it, no matter what was the line or always.
Yeah, I never got tired of that. I thought it was good every time.
I agree.
All right, so you got your least favorite. How about your favorite land in the parks?
Oh, well, it definitely has to be Harry Potter. And so out of the two Harry Potter lands, it would have to be the one based on what's it called now? The area in London, not where Hogwarts is, but the other place.
Diagon Alley?
Yes, that's it. Yes.
I love that section too. Least favorite land.
Well, I would say the Dr. Seuss because, for me, there's just the one ride, and even that I can pass it. I don't have to go on it.
What about, is the comic book area still there? It's still there, right?
Well, yes, which I laugh every time I go through it, not because the comics are funny, but because I find it hysterical that there is any person under the age of 40 that knows any of the characters.
Yeah, it's true. There's nobody in there.
No, my nieces have no idea who even, who Blondie and Dagwood are or anything.
Yeah, I barely remember those. And there's like, who's the guy? Beetle Bailey and nobody knows those.
Bailey, and then of course Popeye. But the thing is, the two water rides are great. I love the Popeye's Bilge Rats and Dudley Do-Right Falls. I love it.
They are good attractions. They are.
I mean, you do get completely soaked, so you have to prepare for it. But I love it.
So all right, so you said Harry Potter was your favorite lands. Have you had the butterbeer, and have you had it hot and cold, or just one way or the other way?
I only had it cold when it first came out. I'm very, me with I have a huge sweet tooth, but it mostly leans towards chocolate. So I only had it the once just to try it. I didn't hate it, but I just prefer something chocolatey. That's all.
Yeah, I had it cold too, and it was fine. Like it was, and I don't love it, and I don't like LeFou's brew either over at Magic Kingdom. I don't like.
I actually like the taste of LeFou's brew better than butter.
LeFou's brew is like an apple, right?
I think so, if I remember.
Yeah, I forget what it is. Like an apple or something. Excuse me. You know what I wanted to ask you? Do they still sell the pumpkin juice in the Harry Potter part? I haven't been there in a while.
I mean, I think because I grabbed Gilly water several times, and I know that those bottles are usually there, and I can't tell you for sure if I remember seeing the bottles stuck in the ice. I can't. No, I don't know.
All right, how about
never
this?
Enjoyed it.
Did you go?
I don't like pumpkin.
Did you go to the Simpsons section and did you get a Flaming Moe?
No.
Neither? No, did neither want either one?
No.
Oh,
I
wow.
went to the Simpsons section just to buy T-shirts for my nieces because of Disney Plus, they're obsessed with the Simpsons
Oh my
now.
God, my kids
I've
too.
never been. So
Chuck, we've been watching The Simpsons every night with my kids before they go to bed. I have the top 100 episodes on my phone. I bookmarked it, and we've just been going through 100 to 1. We're just going through every one night we do an episode. They love it. Simpsons are great, man. It's one of the greatest shows of all time, and it's cool that they have that there. Although I do miss Back to the Future. That's just what a cool ride that was at Universal. I love that ride.
I mean, it's basically the same exact ride. It's just a different theme.
I know,
it's the same
but it was Back to the Future, and I don't know. I don't feel like I don't need a Simpsons ride. I'm cool with I wanted it back anyway. All right. So you said that this is one question I had written down for you for the end of the show. You said that Hagrid's was better than Everest. Is there an attraction at Universal that's better than anything Disney's done? It's better than everything. I'm not anything. Is there an attraction at Universal, Hagrid's included, that is better than all of the Disney attractions?
No. I've always, I've had this conversation with so many people over the years. What I realize, and this is getting way too cerebral, and like I said with my previous comments, I don't really have much faith that most people are smart enough to have this conversation with me. But
you know what would be crazy if you weren't serious about that?
Well, what? Say again?
It would be funnier, I think, if you weren't just a little bit serious about that statement that you just made.
No, you know that of course I'm technically serious, but I'll laugh because there's nothing I can do about it. You know, what can I do about it? So I just laugh whenever I say those things, but I do technically mean it.
All right, so go ahead. So you were saying?
No, I just realized that the thing is that if theme parks and pop culture it's a whole thing. It's such a lifestyle when they talk about lifestyle brands. So Disney to me is such an overwhelming lifestyle brand that it's such a huge part of your life, even when you're not in the theme parks, it just doesn't compare to Universal in that sense. So even if Universal came up with one specific thing, like the Hagrid coaster, which is so incredible, overall, it still doesn't even get close, for me, to what Disney does in general. So that's how I look at it. But I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, so of course I appreciate it anyway, separate from the fact that it's part of Universal.
Right. Hey, could Amy ride the Hagrid ride?
No.
Don't tell her that. Don't tell her. We're going to go. Next time we come down, we're going to make sure we make Universal a part of our trip. So don't tell her that. I want her to ride. Okay. Tell her after. Okay. After she rides, tell her that you told me that you said she could not ride it. Anyway.
Will do.
And last question for you, Chuck. What can Disney learn from Universal as far as reopening goes?
It's to me the only thing is that we haven't really heard how Disney's going to take care of it is the queue 6 feet apart or more situation. I'm trying to think of, and I'm sure this is fun for the viewers. We have to think in our minds how many Disney attractions have queues where it's impossible to be able to just let people realistically be 6 feet apart. That whole situation that I said about the switchback, where it's impossible to use only every other row, or if you have a queue that turns a corner and you can't see the next sticker. I really have to. I think we have to think that through. We have to think of all the Disney rides we've ever been on and the queues, and we have to figure out are there any that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, like I just thought of Buzz Lightyear at Magic Kingdom that has those switchbacks in 2 different rooms. So instantly, that's the one I think of that you're like, oh man. Star Tours.
I assume they would use only one room for that, which makes sense.
Right, and then Star Tours has a lot of the switchbacks too.
Yeah, Star Tours. If there's ever only 2 rows next to each other, I'm just trying to think of if that really happens. But it's easy to see because there's no walls, so it's not hard to see as you go around a corner.
True.
I do want to. I know people have been speculating about this. Is the pre-shows situation? So on Escape from Gringotts, which has 2 very important pre-shows, which to me is very similar to the Haunted Mansion in the sense that one pre-show is just the lobby where in front of the fireplace, and you just listen to something and you wait for the doors to open, and then that's a pre-show that the room actually does something. They just let you walk through. They just don't bother with the pre-shows. Hopefully you've been on it before. You know the story. Just keep walking. And I'm pretty sure Disney's gonna have to do the same thing.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to close those doors on a Haunted Mansion, I don't think. And it's going to ruin the illusion a bit because in Disneyland, there's the elevator, but in Disney World, it's simulated. You don't go anywhere. So that'll ruin that illusion a little bit. But I think you're right. I think they're going to you can't close people in a room and have them on top of each other like that. There's no way.
No, and if you only do you could do a handful of people. I mean, the rooms are huge, but that would slow capacity down to a crawl. It won't work. It won't work.
Yeah,
but like we said, before we started recording, when it comes down to it, we all know that the only people who are actually going to Disney World in the next several months at least are diehard fans who've already memorized every attraction anyway. So it's fine. It's not going to ruin it for any of the people who are actually going.
It's funny. You're right. All the people that I had booked for 2020 who were first timers or who were people who were going for the first time in 10 years, or they all rescheduled for 2021. None of them are going still. I have a good amount. I mean, as an agency, we probably have, 50 or so clients that are still going through, in 2020. So that's pretty good. The people that just were like, well, we're going to go anyway, because they were exactly what you said. They're the diehards. They're the people that go every year or go every other year. They've done the queues. They've done the pre-shows. And they're like, we just want to ride the rides. That's all they want to do is be there, listen to the music. They don't care about the fireworks. They don't care about the parades. It's funny. Like, that's how my kids are too. Just my kids won't wear the masks. They're just afraid to, in a big, they don't want to go to Disney in a mask. I can't blame people who are anxious. I'm anxious about that as well. But my kids, we never do the parades and fireworks. We've done them all. And when we go, we're riding rides while everybody else is doing that,
that actually reminds me of two last things that I thought people would want to know. I mean, the first one is not really important, but it's just that I do think there's a demographic out there of people who want to go to Disney World who've been before, maybe not, ridiculously, 35 times a year, like some of us locals or other people, but people who are waiting to see if the capacity really is low enough that you basically have the park kind of to yourself, where you can walk around the studios for 8 hours and you basically go on Mickey's and Minnie's Railway and Rise of the Resistance, 4 times easily with only a 20-minute wait or less. I think there's a small demographic of people that if they hear that, like relatives of mine, who they don't want to do the whole mask thing, they're kind of annoyed about some things, but they will make the effort. If I tell them I've gone 10 times now and I've never waited more than 15 minutes, I know they'll go.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I'm very curious to see about that demographic.
Yeah, I think I fall personally, not my kids, but I fall in that demographic where if I could go by myself or even like with Amy, not with the kids, if we could go just the two of us for 3 or 4 days and walk on Rise of the Resistance, walk on Mickey Minnie's Runaway Railway, walk on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and Thunder Mountain and Space Mountain. I'm in for that. I'm doing that. Absolutely.
That's right. Sorry,
we get the music, we get the food, we get the parks, we get the I'm in.
I agree. I mean, that's kind of where because I'm a local, I'm going to go no matter what. But that is where I'm at. That's where my excitement level is to see if I can enjoy it at least temporarily. With virtually no queues or waits of 30 minutes or less for the best attractions. Yeah. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I do want to say about the wearing of the mask. I have to admit that around 3 p.m, when I was planning to walk fully across a park in order to get to the next attraction, I couldn't do it. It was like I had been riding a bicycle up a mountain for 35 minutes straight. It was really, really rough. My phone needed charging anyway, so I walked back all the way through City Walk and back to the parking garage, back to my car, put on the AC, and sat there for 40 minutes with 2 bottles of water, waiting for the phone to charge. I actually physically did need that.
Yeah, I mean, they have sections where you can go, right? Where there's no mat.
Yes, which I did. I took advantage of that to be able to, write some texts and just kind of take a quick break. But it was rough. And so for me, the thing is that, as a local, I never have to go for 10 hours straight ever again. That was a special thing because I was there to observe and it was the first time. So I stayed for 10 hours straight. Usually when I go to the theme park, it's for 3 or 4 hours at a time.
Right. You're not an all day guy.
And that is usually, with an hour and a half lunch or dinner in the middle of that time.
Right.
So it's going to work out fine for me. I also did my research. There's a few Disney bloggers who a couple that I read their stuff every single day, and they have on purpose. They've actually tried out different kinds of masks and have walked around in the middle of the day for hours to see how it helps. And based on their recommendation, I did order a certain kind of mask in order to try, because my first time at Disney will be Hollywood Studios on July 18th.
Awesome. So we should do another one of these after that, if you're up for it, and talk about,
sure,
compare and contrast, talk about what Disney's like now, because I won't be there, like we said, for a while. So yeah, let's do that. Let's plan on, the weekend or the week after we'll record the next one, if you're cool with that.
Yes, of course.
Awesome, Chuck. Well, this was awesome. Thanks so much for your insight,
you're welcome,
for your cynicism, which is always welcome and fun. And I appreciate it, man. We'll get you on in a couple weeks.
Okay, sounds good.
And that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ear to There Universal Podcast. Thank you so much to my guest, Chuck Rodriguez, for coming back on the show. Thank you also for going to Universal Orlando for us. Chuck, you are the man if you're listening to this. I think you listen to these episodes. Listen, if you're still listening right now and you're not Chuck, we all know that Chuck listens to these episodes and probably only the ones that he's on. So thank you, Chuck. And thank you so much for listening to this episode. You're awesome. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. Listen, I know a lot of us don't want to admit it, but we will be visiting Universal Orlando soon. And I hope this gives you a little bit of guidance and a little bit of help. And hey, if you didn't know, we booked Universal vacations or vacations pretty much anywhere in the world. Now you know. And knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe. All right. Remember that, G.I. Joe? Okay. That was a great show. So thank you again so much for listening. And if you know someone who may like this show, please share it with them. I'm sure you know somebody who's thinking about taking a Disney vacation or a Universal vacation. Share this episode with that person. Listen, it's greatly appreciated from me and from all the agents on the Ear to There travel team. Just remember, there will be a new episode of the Ear to There Disney podcast next week. Yes, Disney will be coming back, as well as a new episode of the Walt Disney World Word of the Week. So until next time, thank you again so much for listening. You are fantastic. Seriously, fantastic. I really appreciate every time you listen to these episodes from the bottom of my heart. Have yourself an amazing week, a great week. Go enjoy the summer. Go enjoy the sunshine. Jump in a pool. Get in the ocean. Have an amazing time. Bye-bye.
Ear to there.